Tyler's note sat heavy in my pocket. Check the medicine cabinet before she gets home. The lock clicked open. Inside, 3 amber bottles. Kyle's name typed on each label. Scopolamine. A black moleskine notebook, dates and dosages in neat columns. Day 47, W4, MG, 8:15 a.m. A manila envelope. I pulled it open. My face. 12 photographs. My coffee shop. My apartment. My routine mapped in red ink. Phase 2 next, circled twice in red. Before the story continues, tap subscribe and tell me what time it is where you are. Thank you for being part of this. My name is Don Meyers. I'm 58 years old, and I spent 35 years with the United States Postal Inspection Service learning one thing: people lie, but handwriting doesn't. The photographs from Vanessa's medicine cabinet sat on my kitchen table. My face staring back at me from 12 different angles. Coffee shop, my apartment building. My routine dissected like a specimen under glass. The dosage log sat in my memory. Day 47, 04 NG, precise as any forger's ledger. 3 years ago, Maggie and I would have been sitting here together. She'd have her tea, I'd have my coffee. We'd work the crossword, her pen moving in those loops and curves I'd memorized across 36 years of marriage. The stroke took her on a Tuesday morning. She'd been reaching for the sugar bowl. Above my desk, 3 frames. A love letter from 1988, the ink faded to brown. Her pot roast recipe. A birthday card to Kyle with those looped T's she'd learned in Catholic school and passed down to our son when he was 7 years old. I can recognize Kyle's handwriting blindfolded. I taught him myself, using Maggie's method at this very table. Kyle met Vanessa at the Living Hope Grief Support Group 6 months after Linda died. Ovarian cancer. Tyler was 12 when he lost his mother, and Kyle was desperate to fill the hole she'd left. Something in her smile didn't reach her eyes. I said nothing. They married 8 months later, a small ceremony at the courthouse. Vanessa wore cream silk. She smiled at me with her mouth but not her eyes, and I told myself I was being an overprotective father. The first signs appeared around month 4. Kyle forgot Tyler's school name during Sunday dinner. Edison Middle School. He'd driven Tyler there 300 times. Couldn't remember the name. Work stress, Vanessa said. The doctors agreed. Then came the lost conversations. Kyle would start a sentence, pause, and look at me like he'd forgotten I was there. His hands shook when he signed checks. The doctors ran tests. Tests came back clean. Just grief, they said. Maybe early anxiety. His wife takes excellent care of him. Vanessa's wellness routine expanded. Morning smoothies in that Vitamix on the counter. She managed his prescriptions now, scheduled his appointments, controlled his calendar. Sunday dinners became monthly, then quarterly. "You get so tired after visitors," she told me once, her voice smooth as machine oil. "It's better if we space things out. You understand, don't you?" I understood something was happening. I just couldn't prove it. She positioned me carefully over those months. The old-fashioned father-in-law who didn't understand modern wellness. The grieving widower struggling with change. When I mentioned Kyle's trembling hands to his friends, they looked at me with pity. "Don's having a hard time since Maggie," Vanessa told them. "He sees problems everywhere now." I started doubting my own eyes. 35 years catching forgers and a woman with a Pilates membership made me question whether I could still read the signs. 3 days ago, Tyler slipped me a folded note under the table while Vanessa was in the kitchen. His handwriting cramped and urgent. "Check the medicine cabinet before she gets home. Please, Grandpa." Tyler, 14 years old, quiet as his mother was, watching everything the way I taught him. The same kid Vanessa had been telling everyone was troubled, acting out, resentful of his stepmother. I'd almost believed her about that too. The note changed everything. Tyler had seen something. Tyler had the courage to tell me in the only way he could without her hearing. So I went to that house while Vanessa was at yoga. I found the combination to the medicine cabinet in her jewelry box, right where Tyler said it would be. 3 amber bottles with Kyle's name, a black notebook tracking dosages, and those photographs of me, circled in red. Phase 2 next. I picked up the photographs again. The refrigerator hummed. Coffee went cold in my cup. I sat in my apartment now, Maggie's handwriting samples watching from the wall. My vintage fountain pens lined up in their velvet case. The Parker 51 she gave me for our 25th anniversary, catching the morning light. Tyler's note was still in my pocket. My grandson was smarter than his father and me combined, and now I had work to do. 6 months of watching my son disappear. The first signs were small. Kyle forgot his Tuesday meeting, showed up Wednesday instead. His secretary called me, worried. He'd never missed a meeting in 8 years at that company. Work pressure, Vanessa explained at dinner that week. She rubbed his shoulders while he stared at his plate. He's taking on too much. I'm helping him manage his schedule now. Kyle nodded along, like a child being discussed by adults. By month 2, the lapses multiplied. Don instead of Dad, 3 times in one conversation, lost his train of thought mid-sentence, eyes going unfocused, hands opening and closing on nothing. The doctors ran their tests. MRI blood panels, cognitive screening, everything came back clean. Grief, they said. Losing Linda hit him harder than he admitted. Maybe some early anxiety. His wife's taking excellent care of him. His wife. Vanessa sat in every appointment. Kyle opened his mouth. Vanessa spoke first. The doctors turned to her, took notes in that neat handwriting of hers. They spoke to her more than to him. She expanded her wellness routine. Morning smoothies in the Vitamix, bright green and thick with supplements. She managed his medications now, lined up in little daily organizers she'd bought at the pharmacy. She scheduled his appointments, drove him to work, picked him up for lunch. I watched my son become a passenger in his own life. 3 weeks ago, Tyler came to me. We were in my kitchen after school. He'd started stopping by on his bike rides home, something he'd done since Linda died. Just to talk, just to have somewhere that wasn't that house. She puts something in the smoothies, Grandpa, every morning, from a little bottle in her Robe apply. His voice was low, checking the door even though we were alone. I wanted to say he was seeing things. That 14-year-olds invent villains out of stepmothers. But Tyler's eyes held mine. I counted the drops once. He held up his fingers. 7. She added 7 drops. 7. A specific number, not a vague accusation. Tyler had watched carefully, the way I'd taught him to watch. The way his mother Linda used to watch, quiet and observant, missing nothing. I started paying closer attention. Sunday dinners had been weekly tradition since Kyle was born. Maggie's pot roast, my mashed potatoes, Kyle setting the table the same way she'd taught him. After Maggie died, we kept going. Different house, same family. The dinners thinned. Monthly, then every 6 weeks. Vanessa always had reasons. He's just so tired after a long week. She'd touch my arm with that practiced sympathy. Visitors really drain him. Maybe next month. Birthday plans canceled. Christmas moved to their house only. No extended family. Phone calls redirected through Vanessa first. I didn't notice the pattern until Tyler pointed out the smoothies. Then I saw it everywhere. That conversation with Tyler led to the note he'd slip me later, the one about the medicine cabinet. But before that note, before I found the dosage log and the photographs with my face circled in red, There was the moment that made me ready to believe him. 2 weeks ago, I watched Kyle sign a document. We were in his home office, Vanessa showing him papers from their financial advisor. Kyle's hands trembled as he gripped the pen. His eyes moved across the page without settling. "What is this?" he asked. "Just the quarterly review, honey. Sign at the bottom like always." Kyle signed. I watched from the doorway. The signature was wrong. The pressure was uneven. The baseline wavered. The loops on the T in Meyers, the same loops Maggie taught him at our kitchen table, the same loops I'd watched him write 1,000 times, were missing. My son's signature, but not my son's hand. Something was destroying him from the inside. And his wife stood right there, straightening papers, checking her watch. Tyler told me the combination 3 days ago. Dad was having one of his bad days. He kept repeating numbers. 981509, my birthday. Like he was trying to remember something important. Now we stood in Kyle's home office, the afternoon sun cutting through the blinds in slats across the carpet. Vanessa had taken Kyle to Dr. Morrison's office 20 minutes ago, standard checkup. She'd been managing those appointments for months. We had maybe 90 minutes. The Liberty safe sat bolted in the closet, black steel against beige carpet. I punched in the numbers. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Manila folders. A leather portfolio. Insurance documents in a clear sleeve. I pulled the portfolio first. Last will and testament of Kyle Robert Meyers. Dated 3 weeks ago. 2 pages. Crisp paper, clean margins. Tyler stood behind me. I heard him breathing. I, Kyle Robert Meyers, being of sound mind, the standard language, revokes all prior wills. Names, Vanessa Marie Meyers, as sole beneficiary of all real and personal property. Names, Vanessa Marie Meyers as legal guardian of my minor son, Tyler James Meyers. Names, Vanessa Marie Meyers as sole trustee of any inheritance. I read it twice. Then I looked at the signature. Kyle Robert Meyers. My eyes tracked the letters. The K with its sharp angle. The Y dropping below the line. The whole name looked right until I reached the T. The air left my lungs. I read the signature again. The T was wrong. Kyle learned to write at our kitchen table. Maggie sat beside him with her Parker pen, showing him how she formed each letter. She'd learned from the nuns at Holy Rosary, and she passed it down the same way. The T in Meyers always had a loop. Small, distinctive, the crossbar curving back before sweeping right. Maggie's signature. Kyle's signature. 36 years of birthday cards and permission slips and thank you notes. This T was flat, a simple cross. No loop. Someone had studied Kyle's handwriting well enough to copy the slant and the pressure, but they'd missed the family tell. "Grandpa?" Tyler's voice came from far away. "This isn't his signature," I said. I pulled out my phone. The camera app opened. I photographed the first page, the second page, the signature line, close up, the flat T filling the frame. The insurance documents came next. Metropolitan Life, policy number printed at the top. Beneficiary, Vanessa Marie Meyers. Death benefit, $1,500,000. Another photograph. Another. The shutter sound soft in the quiet office. The house was worth $650,000. Kyle had mentioned his retirement accounts once. $280,000 in his 401k. The life insurance made $1.5 million, almost $2.5 million. Tyler's guardian, sole trustee, sole guardian, sole trustee, sole beneficiary. Vanessa wasn't just taking Kyle's life, she was taking everything he'd leave behind. I photographed everything. My hands stayed steady on the phone. Photograph. Swipe. Photograph. Swipe the beneficiary forms, the policy declarations, a property deed with Kyle's shaking signature from 3 months ago, bank statements showing account changes, 35 years of evidence gathering, thousands of fraud cases, forgers who thought they were clever, who missed the small details that only trained eyes would catch. Vanessa had missed the loop. Tyler was already restacking the folders. He knew what to do. We closed the portfolio, shut the safe door, and spun the dial. I checked the room. Nothing out of place. No evidence we'd been there. Tyler looked at me with his mother's eyes. What now? Now we wait. The front door opened 40 minutes later. Vanessa's voice drifted up the stairs, that practiced warmth she used for audiences. Don, what a surprise. Kyle, look who stopped by. Kyle shuffled into the living room. His eyes found me but didn't quite focus. I smiled at Kyle, then at his wife. Just wanted to check on you both, I said. Tyler called and said he was worried about his dad. Vanessa's face arranged itself into concern. That's so sweet. Kyle's doing much better today. Aren't you, honey? Kyle nodded. His hands trembled at his sides. I watched Vanessa watch him, the way her eyes tracked his movements, the way her fingers touched his arm, guiding him toward the couch. The phone in my pocket held photographs of her signature on his death warrant. I stayed for coffee. I made small talk. I let her believe I was just a worried father who didn't understand modern wellness. I drove home with the photographs on my phone and 35 years of patience ahead of me. Patricia Wu answered on the second ring. I need your eyes on something, I said. Signature analysis, forgery confirmation. She didn't ask why. 30 years of joint investigations had taught us both when questions could wait. Send it, she said. I'll clear my afternoon. I forwarded the photographs. The will, the signature, the flat T that had no business being on my son's name. I spent the next 18 hours reviewing the photographs, magnifying each stroke of the forged signature on my laptop screen. The pressure variations, the stroke sequences, the missing loop. Patricia's callback came just before noon the following day. 3 inconsistencies, she said. The signature is Kyle's general style, but the execution is wrong. Pressure distribution peaks in the wrong places. The stroke sequence on the M reverses his natural pattern. I ran it through the comparison scope twice. And the T, that flat T again. No family loop. Kyle learned those loops from his mother. I've seen his signature on 100 Christmas cards. This isn't him. I thanked her and hung up. One validation down. The next morning, I drove Kyle to Hennepin County Medical Center. Just a checkup, I told him. Vanessa's busy with yoga, so I offered to take you. He nodded. His eyes drifted to the window. He didn't ask what kind of checkup or why I'd made the appointment without telling his wife. Dr. Rachel Okonkwo met us on the 7th floor. 45 years old, silver streaks in her natural hair. She didn't shake hands, just gestured to the blood draw chair. I'd called ahead, explained what I'd found. Scopolamine, daily doses for months. She'd agreed to see us without involving Vanessa. Mr. Meyers, she acknowledged Kyle, then me. Let's get some blood work done. Kyle followed the phlebotomist without complaint. When the door closed, Okonkwo turned to me. Anticholinergic panel takes 48 hours. Keep him away from the house if you can. She'd understood immediately. No lengthy explanations needed. 48 hours, I repeated. I took Kyle to my apartment. Told Vanessa he wanted a few days with his father. She protested through the phone. He needs his medications, Don. You know how disoriented he gets without them. I've got everything handled, I said. A pause. 3 seconds too long. Fine. I'll pick him up Thursday. I hung up and watched Kyle sleeping on my couch. Kyle had been with me since Monday. By Wednesday morning, his hands had stopped trembling. While Kyle rested, I drove downtown. Minneapolis Police Department headquarters sat on South 4th Street, granite and glass catching the winter sun. 3rd floor, Financial Crimes Unit. Detective Alma Reyes had a cluttered desk and tired eyes that sharpened when I spread the photographs across her files. "Where did you get these?" she asked. "Medicine cabinet. My daughter-in-law's." That's my face circled in red. She studied the surveillance photos. The dosage log, the forged will with Patricia's notes clipped to the margin. This signature analysis. Your colleague Patricia Wu did this. Former colleague. Postal inspection. She owes me a favor from the Henderson case. Reyes flipped through the documents again. She set down her pen. First time in the meeting. "I've seen this before," she said. 3 cases in 5 years. Wealthy widowers, younger wives from grief support groups. Cognitive decline that doctors can't explain. 2 of them died. I said nothing. She pulled a file from her drawer. Douglas County, Nebraska. Gerald Polk. Heart failure. 18 months into his marriage. Wife inherited $400,000. Moved to Minnesota 3 months later. Wife's name? Reyes looked at me. Vanessa Polk. Maiden name before she married your son. The air in the office went still. "I'm contacting Omaha today," she said. "If the pattern holds, we're looking at serial predation across state lines." I drove back to my apartment. Kyle was awake, watching television. He looked up when I came in. "Dad?" "Not Don. Dad." "Hey, son. Feeling better?" He nodded. Something in his eyes was clearing, like fog lifting off a lake. "Dr. Okonkwo called Thursday morning. Chronic scopolamine poisoning," she said. "Metabolite levels consistent with daily dosing over several months. This wasn't accidental. This was systematic." I sat at my kitchen table. Maggie's handwriting samples watched from the wall. My fountain pens lined up in their case. Medical evidence. Document fraud proof. Interstate pattern of predation. I pulled out my phone and dialed Detective Reyes. "The toxicology results are in," I said. "We're ready." The leather chair in Judge Hendricks' chambers creaked under my weight. 47 hours since I filed the petition. My attorney, James Delacroix, sat beside me, a man I'd worked cases with back when he was prosecuting mail fraud for the U.S. Attorney's Office. The file in front of the judge contained Dr. Okonkwo's toxicology report, Patricia Wu's signature analysis, and Detective Reyes's preliminary investigation notes. Judge Hendricks read without expression. She turned pages. She set down her pen. "Mr. Meyers," she said, "you're asking me to strip a wife's legal authority over her husband based on allegations of poisoning. I'm asking you to protect my son from the woman who's been killing him for 6 months." She held my gaze. Then she picked up the toxicology report again. The emergency order came through 47 hours later. Full medical authority transferred to me. Financial accounts frozen pending investigation. Vanessa locked out of everything. I called Detective Reyes from my apartment. "It's done," I said. "The judge signed this morning." "Good. We're ready to move." She paused. "You sure you want to be there?" "I've been waiting 35 years for this." I picked up the folder Reyes had given me. The Edina house sat quiet under afternoon sun when I pulled up behind the unmarked car. 2 squad cars waited at the corner, out of sight from the windows. Detective Reyes stood by her vehicle, badge visible on her belt. "She's inside," Reyes said. "Alone. Kyle's at your brother's place?" "Since yesterday." She nodded. "We go in 2 minutes." The front door opened before we reached it. Vanessa stood in the frame, her yoga clothes pressed, her hair in soft waves, her smile already forming. "Don, what a surprise. And you brought friends." Same smile as always. All surface, nothing underneath. "Mrs. Meyers." Detective Reyes stepped forward. I have a warrant for your arrest. Attempted first-degree murder, forgery, and fraud. The smile held for one more second. Then it dropped like a mask hitting the floor. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Her voice went flat, cold, the warmth gone. What remained was flat and cold. I've handled men like you before. She was looking at me when she said it. Not at the detective. Not at the officers moving up the walkway. At me. I've been sorting through nonsense for 35 years, I said, and I recognize my son's handwriting. Her eyes flickered. The first crack. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a photograph I'd taken from my apartment wall that morning. Maggie's birthday card to Kyle from 1995, his name written in her hand, teaching him the letters. My son learned to write at our kitchen table, I said. His mother taught him these loops. The T in Meyers, the way the crossbar curves back before sweeping right. That's a Meyers signature. Has been for 36 years. I turned the photograph so she could see it clearly. The will you forged doesn't have those loops. The T is flat. Simple cross. You studied his handwriting well enough to copy the slant. But you missed the family tell. Vanessa's face went white. Her hands, those manicured hands that had crushed scopolamine into my son's smoothies, curled into fists at her sides. That's not, she started. Patricia Wu confirmed it, I said. 3 distinct inconsistencies. Pressure distribution, stroke sequence, and the T. Officers moved past me. Reyes was reading rights. Vanessa's wrists disappeared behind her back, metal clicking shut. She looked at me one more time as they led her down the walkway. The neighbors had gathered now, watching. The devoted wellness wife led away in handcuffs. I pulled Tyler's note from my wallet. The paper was soft from handling, the creases worn deep. My grandson is smarter than both of us, I said. Vanessa said nothing. The squad car door closed behind her. I stood in the driveway until the cars disappeared around the corner. Then I walked back to my truck. Maggie's photograph sat on the passenger seat. The afternoon light caught the paper, her handwriting, Kyle's inheritance, the loops that caught a killer. I drove to my brother's house to tell my son. The charges landed in 2 states within the week. Minnesota filed first. Attempted first-degree murder. Forgery. Fraud. The Hennepin County DA's office moved with more urgency than I'd seen in 3 decades of working with prosecutors. Nebraska came next. Douglas County requested exhumation of Gerald Polk's body for toxicology screening. 2 years in the ground, but scopolamine metabolites could still be detected in bone marrow and hair samples. Detective Reyes called me Thursday morning with the financial records. Gerald's estate totaled $400,000. She liquidated all assets within 90 days of his death. The account statement spread across her desk when I met her that afternoon. Luxury car purchases, designer clothes, a lease on a high-rise apartment in downtown Minneapolis. 14 months. She burned through $400,000 in 14 months. Then she joined the Living Hope Grief Support Group. Looking for another target. Reyes nodded. Your son fit the profile. Widower. Good income. Minor child. Visible emotional distress. The Moleskine notebooks had been entered into evidence. Crime scene technicians found 3 of them in Vanessa's bedside drawer. Not just Kyle's symptoms. Not just dosage logs. She documented Gerald too. Reyes opened an evidence bag and slid the first notebook across the desk. Same format. Dates. Doses. Symptoms. Day 23. Increased confusion. Forgot daughter's birthday. Day 41. Tremors in left hand. Blamed on work stress. Day 58. Signed power of attorney without reading. I turned the pages. Clinical observations of a man she was killing. Notes on timing. Questions about detection. How long until symptoms become permanent? She'd written that in the margin of page 47, 3 question marks after it. The crime scene report from the Edina house came through Friday. The Vitamix blender tested positive for scopolamine residue, trace amounts in the blade assembly. More in the rubber gasket around the lid. Tyler had been right all along. 7 drops every morning. The evidence confirmed what a 14-year-old had been brave enough to report. His testimony to investigators took 4 hours. Reyes let me observe through the one-way glass. Tyler sat straight in his chair, hands flat on the table, voice steady. 7 drops. Same time every morning. Same bottle from her Robe pocket. The defense attorney Vanessa had hired tried to paint him as troubled. Resentful stepson, acting out for attention. Then Reyes produced his school records. Straight A's since 6th grade. Perfect attendance. 3 commendations from teachers for helping younger students. 0 disciplinary incidents. The troubled teenager narrative collapsed in 30 seconds. Financial forensics finished their review the following week. Kyle's beneficiary designations had been changed 6 weeks before the arrest. Life insurance, retirement accounts, brokerage statements. Every signature dated from the period when his blood showed peak scopolamine levels. She'd changed everything, while he couldn't understand what he was signing. The forensic accountant's words to Reyes. Classic exploitation of diminished capacity. Word moved through Edina's cul-de-sacs and book clubs within 48 hours. The neighbors who had dismissed my concerns went quiet. The yoga friends who had praised Vanessa's devotion stopped returning calls. The book club disbanded. I saw one of them at the grocery store. She looked away when our eyes met. I had driven Kyle from my brother's house to Hennepin County Medical Center the morning after the arrest. He needed monitored detoxification, Dr. Okonkwo had said. Professional supervision as the scopolamine left his system. Vanessa's bail hearing was denied that same day. Flight risk, pattern of predation, danger to the community. I sat with Kyle every afternoon that first week. The trembling stopped on day 2. The confusion began lifting on day 3. By day 5, he looked at me and said my name, Dad. His voice cracked on the word. His eyes focused on mine for the first time in months. Dr. Okonkwo reviewed his progress that evening. Full recovery expected within 3 months. Cognitive function returning faster than the models projected. He may never remember this period with any real detail. She set down her chart. The scopolamine affects memory consolidation. The past 6 months might always be foggy for him. I nodded. That was fine. That was better than fine. Kyle sat up in his hospital bed, fluorescent light humming overhead, the antiseptic smell sharp in the small room. He looked at me again. Dad, I'm here, son. If my journey speaks to you, tap like and comment your rating from 1 to 10. Your opinion matters to me. 6 months later, Kyle went back to work. The doctors cleared him in March. Full cognitive recovery. No permanent damage. He moved slower for a few weeks, checking his own memory the way I'd check a signature against a reference sample. But the fog had lifted. My son was back. Tyler starts high school in the fall. He picked the school himself. The guardianship dissolved in April. Kyle makes his own decisions again. Nebraska confirmed the scopolamine in Gerald's remains last month. Bone marrow samples. Hair follicles. The poison was still there. 2 years in the ground. 2 victim files sat in the DA's folder. Gerald Polk, Kyle Meyers. Same method, same poison. Vanessa faces life sentences in both states. The prosecutor said she'll die in prison. I sit at my kitchen table now, the Parker 51 in my hand. Maggie pressed this pen into my hands on our 25th anniversary. The nib still writes smooth after all these years. Morning light cuts across the table. Steam rises from my coffee. The scratch of nib on paper fills the quiet room. I address the envelope to Tyler. Same apartment building where he grew up. Different unit now. Smaller. Just him and Kyle starting over. The letter inside covers 2 pages. His first week of summer job at the library. A recipe for Maggie's pot roast I promised to teach him. The same one we used for Sunday dinners. Small things. I could text him. He'd get it faster. But handwritten words say things that texts can't. Maggie taught my son to write at our kitchen table. Those lessons saved his life. I sealed the envelope and checked the return address. Same loops on the T she'd taught us both.